Dr. Reese, eat. Hurry up. I've already eaten, so why aren't you eating? Fever, I admire your determination. To achieve your goal, you're even willing to risk your life. But unfortunately, you've underestimated me, Dustin remarked, his smile dropping. What do you mean? Fever started to panic. Devil's grass, aconite, and Zeus vine are a deadly concoction. You're all out for my life. Dustin narrowed his eyes at Fever. He had sensed something was amiss from the moment Fever entered the room. Dustin allowed Fever to eat first as a test, purely to confirm his suspicions. But he was taken aback by the young man's determination, willing to risk his own life for malicious purposes. He was truly heartless. No, it can't be. How did you know it was poisoned? Fever exclaimed with growing panic. By now, black blood was flowing from his nostrils, and his face had taken on a sickly bluish hue. Don't forget, I'm a doctor, and not just any ordinary doctor, Dustin explained. Die, you dash. Fever's face turned murderous as he drew a knife and thrust it violently at Dustin's chest, the blade tainted with poison. Is this your last-ditch effort? Dustin grabbed Fever's arm, gave it a quick twist, and followed by a powerful kick to his abdomen. Fever let out a howl. He was sent several feet away and crashed into a wall, blood spewing forth uncontrollably. Tell me everything. Who sent you? Come clean, and I might be able to help with the poison, Dustin said casually. Fever coughed up more black blood. The pain of the poison caused his body to convulse, and his face contorted in pain. He attempted to speak but was interrupted by a sudden intruder, Joaquin, the Welsh family's butler. You audacious criminal. How could you attempt to harm Dr. Reese? You have a death wish. Joaquin bellowed, drew his sword, and swiftly killed Fever. With a swift, ruthless swing, Fever's head parted from his body, thudding to the floor and rolling like a soccer ball. His saucer-wide eyes showed his disbelief. He never imagined that his life wouldn't be taken by Dustin but by his foster father. Joaquin, the Welsh family butler, was actually Fever's foster father. When Fever had nowhere to go, Joaquin rescued him, bringing him into the Welsh family and giving him a place to stay. He had always been grateful and dutiful. So, when Joaquin instructed Fever to poison Dustin, he didn't hesitate. Fever felt it was time to repay the kindness he had received. To gain Dustin's trust, he even risked his own life, completely willing to sacrifice it. But now, he was betrayed by the man he considered as family. It was the reality that he couldn't wrap his head around. What? Dustin furrowed his brow upon seeing Fever's lifeless body. He fixed his gaze squarely on Joaquin and asked calmly, Mr. Yaxley, care to explain what's going on here? Dr. Reese, I apologize for the shock you've just experienced. Joaquin sheathed his blade and wore a welcoming smile. I never expected a traitor within the household. Thankfully, I discovered it in time lest something worse may happen. Is that so? Am I supposed to be thanking you for this? Dustin raised an eyebrow, his tone carrying a hint of sarcasm. The timing of Joaquin's appearance was suspiciously precise, as if it was planned. The ruthless precision of that final strike left no room for doubt. It was clearly an attempt to silence a potential witness. Dustin couldn't understand why the Welsh family had suddenly turned against him. Thanking me is unnecessary, Dr. Reese. Ensuring your safety is our duty, Joaquin assured. I must admit, it's my fault for misjudging people and letting a traitor into our home. I apologize for that. Mr. Yaxley, I find it rather odd. Fever had no reason to bear a grudge against me. Was he acting on someone else's orders? Dustin's tone hinted at what was unsaid. In that regard, I'm uncertain, Joaquin replied. Rest assured, Dr. Reese, we'll investigate thoroughly to uncover the one pulling the strings. Well, I suppose I'll have to trust Mr. Yaxley to get to the bottom of it, Dustin responded with a wry smile. Of course. Joaquin nodded. What's going on? Did something happen? A loud voice suddenly echoed from outside the room. Alistair, Joanne, and others quickly entered. When they laid eyes on Fever's lifeless body, surprise painted their expressions. Mr. Welsh, Mrs. Welsh, Fever was bribed to poison Dr. Reese. Fortunately, I intervened just in time and took control of the situation, Joaquin explained. Alistair put on an act, appearing indignant as he remarked, This scoundrel dared to bite the hand that fed him. He got what he deserved." After a brief outburst, he turned to Dustin, his tone filled with concern. "Dr. Reese, are you hurt?" "I'm fine. I just find the entire situation rather amusing," Dustin replied with a faint smile. "Amusing? What do you mean?" Alistair asked, puzzled. "Fever knew I was a doctor, and yet he attempted to poison me. It's rather foolish, don't you think?" Dustin quipped with a smirk. "Yes, very foolish indeed," Alistair replied, forcing a grin. At that moment, Joanne's brow furrowed, but she quickly concealed her emotions. Dustin asked politely, "Mr. Welsh, I've heard that your father has awakened. Is that correct?" "Yes, my dad has indeed woken up, but he's still weak. His mind is somewhat clouded. I believe he needs some time to rest," Alistair replied. Dustin reassured him, "No worries, those are just some after effects. He'll be back on his feet in no time." Changing the topic, he continued, "Now, Mr. Welsh, about our deal. You promised me the Emerald Corolla and the Iceheart Lotus. When can I get them?" "Well," Alistair exchanged a glance with those beside him and hesitated. Joanne quickly interjected, "Dr. Reese, we have no intentions of going back on our word. However, it might take a while since we're swamped with other things, and your request isn't our top priority. Mrs. Welsh, it seems you had a different stance when we made the deal." Dustin shook his head. "Precious herbs are rare and can't be easily acquired. We'll notify you when we have any information." "Your patience will be appreciated," Joanne stated, unyielding. Dustin replied with a wry smile, "Patience? I'm afraid if I wait any longer, I won't live long enough to see those herbs." From their previous conversation, he had deduced that the Welsh family was determined to kill him. It was likely related to the formula of Dew Balm, a treasure precious enough to prompt them to act against him. Joanne remained cool and unyielding. "If you can't wait, there's not much we can do." "Fine. It looks like I can no longer rely on the Welsh family. We'll go our separate ways," Dustin declared before leaving. Joanne suddenly called out to him, stopping him in his tracks. "Hold on, Dr. Reese." Dustin turned back, his expression cold. "Mrs. Welsh, do you have something else to say?" If the Welsh family intended to escalate the situation, he would not hold back. "Dr. Reese, my father-in-law is still weak and needs nourishment. The dragon Panax we gave you is the best supplement. We hope you can return it," Joanne said, her words unapologetic. "Return it?" Dustin was taken aback but soon chuckled. "Mrs. Welsh, are you joking with me? The dragon Panax was acquired through a trade for the formula. Why should I return it?" She remained calm. "I can pay for it. Just name your price." He shook his head. "I don't need money. So, you won't sell it, is that it? Then, consider our trade-off," Joanne declared. She placed a piece of paper on the table and stated, "This is the Dew Balm formula you wrote. I'm giving it back to you, and I don't want to work with you anymore. Return me the dragon Panax." "Mrs. Welsh, are you treating me like a 3-year-old?" Dustin narrowed his eyes at her. "You've already seen the formula. Who knows how many copies you've made? What's the point of returning it now?" The audacity of Joanne was truly astounding. Not only had she failed to find the Iceheart Lotus and Emerald Corolla, but she now intended to reclaim the dragon Panax, leaving him with nothing. Joanne argued confidently, "Our trade was herbs for the formula. I don't want the formula anymore, so give back the herbs." "That's only fair." Dustin chuckled, though his eyes were cold. Well, it appears the mighty Welsh family can't keep their word." Joanne raised her voice, her patience wearing thin. "Enough small talk. Hand over the dragon Panax, take your formula, and we can part on good terms. If not, don't blame me for the consequences." As she spoke, 2 martial artist masters stepped forward, blocking Dustin's path, their gaze sharp. "What's this? You want to do this the hard way?" Dustin scanned the Welsh family members and smirked.